Hi there. Welcome to NewsTalker, a news talk show of WIC Communications in Southern Arizona. I'm Managing Editor Matt Hickman of the Herald Review in Cochise County, joined as always by Green Valley News Managing Editor Dan Shear, Tom Bodis, Managing Editor from the Eastern Arizona Courier, and Nogales International Publisher Manuel Coppola. Gentlemen, welcome. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Thank you.
I got the good orange wall for the effect there. It's the season of ghosts and ghouls, and it's also the season of election. We are just literally days away from what I think we would all agree is the most anticipated election in our lifetimes. We definitely want to kick off with that and talk a little bit about some of the things that are going up in the run up here, how things are looking, what early turnout is looking like. Are there any snafus or issues with the our local election department? Dan, let's kick it off in your neck of the woods there. Green Valley saw Rita. What's the buzz like, and have there been any issues?
Been talking to people for about the last week, and the word that keeps coming up is that they are exhausted. They're exhausted by all the ads they get in the mail, all the commercials on TV, all the lies, the deceptions. One quote from one of our readers was "You can't fight lies with the truth," which is really a sad quote if you think about it. But as we talk to people about how the election season has played out, most of them at this point are just glad it's over. We'll see where the chips fall on Tuesday, and I think everyone just wants to move on.
Yeah, obviously Arizona being a battleground state on the presidential level, Senate's a big deal as well. I guess this is a question to ask people. Do you think that, have we reached a point maybe that in 2024 here where they've now gone too far with negative and vitriolic advertising that it could actually be biting back some candidates this time around?
Well, I don't know how much farther they can take it short of open gunfire. So I'm pretty.
Speaking of that, out in Graham County, Greenlee County, what's the move?
Well, I mean, I think the sentiments out here surprisingly are is the same as they are everywhere else. We're just kind of getting tired of it. I spoke with one of our supervisors the other day, and and he's hardcore Republican, Trump supporter, and all that, but he's pretty much over this by this point. And this is a highly conservative area, so I pretty much know how the voting is going to go without seeing it, but it's tiresome, and it's gotten nasty here too. You had a lot of sabotage of political signs and things like that going on, and you've had I've talked to some Democrats here who had some kids accosting them at an event and it's just kind of it's really been nasty, and it gets more and more unpleasant all the time.
Interesting comment from a guy just today I was speaking to this morning, and he says the media have placed an outsized importance on the president's race. Not that what the president does doesn't affect us, but really it's those local races that are going to have a bigger impact on your life, and we should be focusing more on those as media. And I think he's right to a point, is that we keep saying Harris said this and Trump responded with this and on all this. Again, an important race, but have we put so much importance on it that it has now become like a soap opera that people tune into every day and are now tired of?
Yeah,
it's interesting you should say that, Dan. This morning I was listening to a report. He's a reporter out of the LA Times. He's doing a piece on Morenci and the area up by Utah, and he noticed that there were very few presidential or Trump versus Harris signage, but more local election flyers and stickers and all that sort of thing. And he asked somebody, and they said exactly that. It's the local races that really impact us, or we can have a more effective impact on those candidates than we can on the president. And so yeah, I think that says a lot. I think I've seen the same here in Nogales. So far in Nogales, we've got 9,036 early ballots cast out of the 22,200 early ballot voters. and out of a total pool of 33,000 voters. So they're energized, but yeah, they want to get over with this.
Yeah, one race I was kind of curious out in your area there that we share, that the Douglas part of our market shares, is the race for Raul Grijalva's CD7 race with Daniel Gutierrez. I see Daniel Gutierrez doing a lot of advertising. He's advertising in the Nogales International, among other places. He's pushing pretty hard. Is he making any inroads that you're seeing, Manuel?
I'm not that I've seen, but yeah, I do see his advertising, and he's very vocal, a little boisterous, but I don't think it's going to be enough to turn the tide, frankly.
Yeah, he has part of our, yeah, he has part of our area up here, and he's done some national interviews, and so he's getting a lot of ink and a lot of airtime, more than you would think he would. But the Democratic advantage in that district is so overwhelming. I don't think Grijalva has much to worry about.
Yeah, and I just tying in finally to CD6, where Juan Ciscomani is the current Congress member that we share. The Tom and Dan and us here in Cochise County, we share Juan Ciscomani. He's getting, he's in another tough race with Kirsten Engel, and this kind of, I think, segues into our second topic that we want to talk about today. Kirsten Engel kind of making a move out here in Cochise County, Graham County as well, trying to make a push about water. Because that's something that, Ciscomani, it's not really a strong suit of his. It's not a really Republican issue. But she's been hitting the water issue pretty hard. And we had a little bit of a breaking news in the last week where it looks like the Wilcox Basin is going to go to a water management system, an AMA, which the Douglas Basin has already done. There's been a lot of resistance to that because, pro-growth groups don't necessarily want to have tight controls on water. So that's kind of the give and take there, but it looks like the dam finally broke, and Wilcox is going to pursue an AMA. So just going back real quick to the Ciscomani Engel race, water seems like it's something that came up late in it, and it might be something that Engel could use to make an inroad. Do any of you see Engel overtaking Ciscomani in this race?
I don't really know what the polling numbers are. I haven't watched it, but I've had the impression that it was a pretty tight race because it was tight before, and I know Ciscomani has a huge advantage in the rural areas, but he's not as strong in Tucson, and that's where Engel seems to pick up a lot of votes. I don't know. I'm very interested in see how this one turns out. It seems to me, though, I haven't really heard her talking about water as much as I've heard her beating the drum on abortion.
Right, but that might be the issue that's going to help her, and that was the fear of the Ciscomani campaign early on, was that Prop 139, which would enshrine abortion rights into the state constitution, would draw a lot more women out, and that she would have an advantage in CD6. So we'll see if that actually happens. But I think they're making a mistake of thinking that all women walk in lockstep when it comes to the abortion issue, because I know a lot of them who have told me they're coming out to vote against Prop 139. So we'll see how that happens. But I agree, her pivot to water and other issues that are of greater interest to her constituents has come very late in the race. I don't know how that's going to work for her.
Yeah, I mean, it could help her a little bit in, she doesn't need that many more votes, but if she can get a better turnout in Cochise and Graham, that would help her, get over that 5,000 vote separation they had last time. Let's go around the horn real quick, and we'll talk a little bit more about water. But Ciscomani Engel, who do you think wins it? Dan, who do you think wins that?
I think he's going to take it this time, and I think what is going to play in his favor is that he truly has worked across the aisle and has done some substantive work during his first term the last couple of years. So he was running on a record this time, and I think he might, he might win it this time. But there could be a surprise.
Yeah,
I think that the whole immigration thing that came up late in the campaign, I don't think he's adequately responded to that as far as the origins of his wife's immigrant parents and his. I've not heard an effective response. I don't know if that's just now water under the bridge or if that's going to stick in people's minds. That could hurt him.
And Manuel, you know what? That brings up the point of, is he running the campaign or is the campaign running the campaign? They always say that, the candidates leading the charge, but a lot of times they're encouraged to not talk about certain issues, and they know they could do it well, but they're told no, just don't go in that direction. So I think they have handlers and they listen to them a lot, and I think a lot of times to their detriment.
Yeah, you know, the
Good point.
last week in Sierra Vista here, we had a celebrity visit from House Speaker Mike Johnson, who showed up at a local bar, Doc's Watering Hole, for an event for Ciscomani. Very interesting event. Johnson gets up there, he's up on stage, very charismatic. And he talks about how they don't send the Speaker of the House out to just any race. They send it out to this is a big race. This is one the Republicans are really worried about. Ciscomani spoke very little. He only spoke at the end, brought all 6 of his kids and his wife on stage, and said very little about the campaign or any issues or anything related to that. It was really Mike Johnson coming there to give him a boost. And that this event actually caused kind of a riff in Cochise County, especially among Democrats and some independents who are upset that certain sort of Democrat or nonpartisan municipal and county leaders were present and getting their picture taken with Mike Johnson, which is, you take that for what it's worth. But it was interesting that, that the Republicans are very concerned, obviously, about Ciscomani to have Mike Johnson come out here and give him this boost.
Yeah.
Well, Ciscomani has Graham County pretty much locked up, but they like him a lot here. But like I say, in fact, I don't know how many times Engel's visited here, but it's not been that many. But Ciscomani regularly comes out here. He's in the parades and everything else. So he's got a strong following here. And obviously, him being on the Appropriations Committee, he's been playing that card a lot, and for good reason. That's a big deal. So, and he's actually, I know here he's done a lot as far as getting money here. So that's helped him strengthen his base here a lot. So he's got this area sewed up, but like I say, I don't know what's going to happen in the urban areas, because that's where he loses support.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick Ciscomani to win. I think it's going to be about as close as last time. I don't know that. I think Ciscomani does enough. It's a really difficult district to try to sit on both sides of, to serve 2 masters there, and I can't imagine anybody doing a much better job of that than the way Ciscomani does. He touts himself as the most bipartisan member of the Arizona delegation. So I'm going to stick with Ciscomani, but I think it's going to be about as tight as last time. But if we move on, let's move on to we got some interesting stuff happening on the border and at the ports, especially Nogales and Douglas, which includes Santa Cruz County, Cochise County, where our papers are at. I know there's a lot of obviously there's a huge project to renovate the port, the Castro port at Douglas. That's supposed to be completed by 2028. Could make, they say, Douglas the biggest transport place on the border this side of Tijuana. Big deal there, but also some stuff happening in Nogales at the DeConcini port. Can you give us a little update on what's going on there, Manuel?
Sure. At this point, it's all conceptual, but they're starting to sound very serious about it. But we're talking years down the road, if not decade. They want to revamp the DeConcini port of entry, which was ill-designed in the first place, and it's just an eyesore and not very conducive to cross-border traffic. So eventually that has to get redone. In the meantime, they're having their walkthroughs and studies of potential impacts the port renovation could have on downtown itself. I don't know if you are familiar with the Mariposa port of entry. That's a commercial port of entry. It's one of the largest and in Arizona. And they're talking about a similar footprint downtown, which would necessarily mean the demolition of some historic buildings. And that's got people up in arms a little bit. So we'll see how that all plays out. Maybe they can incorporate that old architecture into the new design. I don't know, but it's going to be a while before we see a new port of entry downtown, unlike with the Castro.
Yeah, there's a real hope in Douglas that this is going to basically save Douglas. I mean, it's been economically depressed since the mines left, basically. And they're really counting on this to not only bring in a bunch of jobs to build the port, but to really make, like, you talk about a commercial port and a place where you have a lot of activity to renovate downtown and have lasting lasting economic benefit. They've already gotten, and a lot of people have their doubts that this is ever going to happen, but they're getting the grants, the money's coming in. Right now, the biggest hiccup to anything really happening is the connector road that would, essentially go from the highway to the checkpoint. They keep kicking that can down the road, but you got to figure with all the money they've already poured into it that they'll figure that one out one way or another. But it really is, Douglas's future is entirely riding on the success of this port of entry.
I hope they're not overestimating that. It'll be years before you see some actual economic development spring out of this whole project. And I can tell you from experience in Nogales, we too had high hopes for the Mariposa port of entry. We're having record number of commercial truck crossings, but they drive right past through for the most part. And it's all well and good for maybe the trade folks, but locally it hasn't made a big dent in our economy.
Conversation piece with economic development. How can you, as a port city, make money? Who knows? It's probably a conversation for another time.
In a past life, I worked very near the Mexicali port of entry, and or the Calexico port of entry rather, and most of that economic benefit skipped over Calexico, went into farther north in El Centro. So, yeah, it's not a given that just because you have it, you'll get the benefit where you think you will.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Mexico has surpassed China as our #1 trading partner, if I'm not mistaken. So there's that optimism. All right. Well, I think we've had an interesting subject here on Halloween, getting ready for Election Day. Maybe why don't we go around the horn one time? And one thing that'll be worth bringing up is we didn't really talk on any problems you guys have had with elections. And I'll give you a little sample we've had here, because Cochise County is always famous for having one problem or another regarding elections. The latest one starts in Douglas. It's county related. County Board of Supervisors 2. They last week it was discovered that they sent out the wrong ballots to 118 voters. The ballots did not include an option for the Board of Supervisor race there. Voting on, which is a Douglas native versus a Bisbee native. So to lose 118 Douglas votes in a race that's going to be decided by no more than a few hundred is very troubling. Lisa Mara, the state director of elections, came down, formerly the Cochise director of elections, who sued the county, and that's another story, before she left. So that is an ongoing mess. They ran the machines again, and now they say they worked fine. How they're going to get these 118 ballots back to these people to re-vote essentially on one race is anyone's guess, but we still don't have an answer for that for sure at this point. Any irregularities going out in where you guys are at?
We had one up here. More than 500 ballots were almost sent out that had people in the wrong school district. Now, they caught that and people received the correct ballot. However, those we checked back, and those incorrect ballots did go out in the 2022 election, and we had a school board race that one seat was decided by around 100 votes. And so this having people in the incorrect school district could have affected that election in 2022. At this point, you just say, oh, well, which is unfortunate, but a small number there can really have a big impact.
Yeah, I mean, you say, you can say, oh, well, but if someone files a lawsuit, some of these lawsuits could have legs, you would think, in some of these situations.
Absolutely.
Anything strange? Yeah. Anything strange going on in the Graham Greenlee area out there, voting wise, Tom?
Not that it's come to my attention. It's been pretty smooth sailing so far, but it's still early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
We had some reports of ballots not getting out on time, but it didn't bear out. So I think it's been pretty good down here so far with the new recorder.
Yeah. Well, Tuesday night is going to be an adventure, and you're going to want to be right here at NewsTalker, where we're going to, after the polls close at 7 p.m., we will be here on air live with updates, updated poll results. We have reporters in the field who'll be checking in, hopefully getting some interviews with some winners and losers and people who lost and think they won and won and thought they lost. So we'll have a good time here Tuesday night after the polls close, sometime after 7. Check in here. We'll be here live on all our various websites. HeraldReview.com, Green Valley News, Nogales International, and the Eastern Arizona Courier. Gentlemen, a good conversation, and happy Halloween and happy voting.
All right, thanks, Matt.